A Newsweek editor now from one of the first to report this story. Naveed Jamali is a Newsweek editor-at-large and author of How to Catch a Russian Spy. He was one of the reporters exclusively on site when cadaver dogs searched the area where Lucy Studi says her father buried bodies. Naveed, how did you come across this story and decide that this person, Lucy Studi, the daughter who's alleging her father was a serial killer, is credible?
Yeah, Anderson, it's a great question. This started off, as many of these stories do, it was a tip. And it went to my colleague, Eric Firkinoff, who then asked me to sort of fact check it. And look, Anderson, as it is with these stories, it comes down to one person. And really, it came down to a conversation where I sat down with Lucy in person. And, I find her story, frankly, credible.
Why hasn't anyone really investigated what Lucy has said in the past?
So Lucy, one of the things that makes Lucy so credible, Anderson, is that for 45 years, she has been telling the same story consistently. And we found this in evidence in some of the early records that we've obtained. And it's something that the sheriff who is leading this investigation has told us as well. So why it hasn't happened is really, I think, it's an important question. And I think in Lucy's case, she had sort of four things working against her. One, when this allegedly happened, she was a child. Two, she was poor. And three, as she told it later on, she was a woman. And we understand how law enforcement in many cases just dismisses the claims of women. And of course, the fourth thing, which is we have yet to find a body or a name associated with this, even though she says very credibly that she saw these bodies being disposed of. We have yet to find those elusive bodies.
She has an older sister who says she doesn't believe what Lucy is saying, correct?
That is correct. And that's an important part. And, she also has stepbrothers and stepsisters, and some of whom we've spoken to have also backed up Lucy's claim. So it is important to say that the other sister, has not, she sees her father as, wants to clear his name, but everyone else that we've spoken to, independent of Lucy Studi, thus far has frankly corroborated her story.
And explain what you've uncovered about Don Studi, Lucy's father.
So Don Studi is, if this were 2022, Anderson, it's hard to imagine that he would have gotten away with the myriad of things that he did. I mean, we were able to establish that, in fact, he was a gambler, and that he lived a life of crime. And while those things don't necessarily point to him being a murderer, let alone a serial killer, speaking to people, there is this pattern of both violence and another interesting thing, a pattern that says that he may have been connected to a criminal ring and potentially organized crime.
And the area that investigators are looking at, how difficult is it? Because at some point there was a law enforcement officer who went out, couldn't find the well that she had talked about. That was a while ago. Then Lucy was able to show other law enforcement the well. What is it like, and what did the cadaver dogs find so far?
So it is, as I would describe it, there is remote and then there is this. To give you an idea, you drive through, there's no roads there. You're driving through essentially cow pastures that are with steep embankments. And you finally get to this spot that the only way I can describe is it looks as if it were a crater. You actually have to descend into this canyon, and that's where the well is. And one investigator described it to me that if you were to bury a body, this would be the place to do it. I mean, you go down there, there's no sound, there's no one passing through there. So you have unfettered sort of access and undisturbed ability to really do what you will there. And one can imagine that a body buried there would, likely go undisturbed because there's just no human traffic that goes through there.
And so the cadaver dogs have sensed what?
Yeah, so cadaver dogs, and this is a question we had for the science of the cadaver dogs. So cadaver dogs, as experts tell us, they're not going to pick up on any other scent other than the decay of human bodies. Now, in this case, the way that the cadaver dogs approach this, and the handler, he didn't go to the well and say, do they smell anything? Instead, he sort of took this grid approach, and he let the dogs we're watching this, organically go to places that interested them. And they naturally were drawn to both the well and another spot. So these are spots that Lucy, independently, who was not guiding the dogs, had said that these were burial sites.
So what happens next? I mean, are they going to dig at those spots?
That is the hope. As I understand it, Iowa, as the winter is approaching, there is probably a window in which the ground freezes, which makes it potentially difficult. But as the sheriff has told us, he was expecting the FBI to bring in resources earlier this year. And for some reason that we don't fully understand, that process seemingly stalled while the sheriff was waiting for the FBI to come in.
It's an incredible story. Naveed Jamali, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Authorities in Iowa are looking into claims from a woman who says her father was a serial killer. Lucy Studi tells police that her father, Donald Studi, murdered between 50 and 70 people, and that she helped him dump the bodies in a well on their former property. This was years ago in the southwestern corner of the state. Her sister says the claims are not true. Local authorities say they don't know.
All we have is a woman came forward and told us a story about bodies in a well. We did bring a couple cadaver dogs. Cadaver dogs looked in there and, looked around the area, and they did indicate in the area. I'm not going to say it was right over the well or where, but they did indicate in the area.
Donald Studi died in 2013. Investigators say it may take months to tell if any of the murder claims are true.